Hi, my name is Katie Heffner, and today we're going to be looking at a few choice pieces of correspondence from two editors and fans of horror writing. Specifically, we will be examining a letter from Poe scholar Thomas Olive Mabbott to Lovecraft editor August Derleth in the early 1940s. I specifically chose this fascinating letter because it sheds light on how academic fans worked in solidarity to further the proliferation of weird fiction. To begin, let's look at Poe scholar Thomas Olive Mabbott. As a professor at Hunter College and long-standing president of the Edgar Allan Poe Society, Mabbott spent much of his life investigating Poe's works in 19th century magazines. He also spent a great number of years researching and collecting a variety of interesting materials related to Poe. After Mabbott's death in 1968, his wife donated his papers to the University of Iowa's Special Collections Library. Yet for as much of a scholar that Mabbott was, he still enjoyed less academic publications like pulp magazines. A particularly popular pulp magazine was Weird Tales, which was first published in 1923. It featured uncanny tales of terror by authors such as Seabury Quinn, H.P. Lovecraft, with even an occasional Poe reprint. In the late 1930s, Mabbott made frequent appearances in the Erie, the Letters to the Editor section of Weird Tales. Through his letters, he created friendship with pulp editors, weird fiction writers, and fans. Now, one of his correspondents was August Derleth, a fan, writer, and supporter of H.P. Lovecraft's work. Derleth was a regular contributor to the Weird Tales magazine, a well-known fan, a friend to H.P. Lovecraft, as well as an editor of Lovecraft's work. August Derleth and Donald Wandry founded the Arkham House, an independent press dedicated to the work of Lovecraft. They were the first to publish a compilation of H.P. Lovecraft's tales, which made these supernatural, cosmic tales of terror more accessible to an audience outside of the Weird Tales community. On August 9, 1943, August Derleth sent a letter to Thomas Mabbott explaining to him a paper shortage and the reluctance of fans purchasing copies of books published through Arkham House. Derleth claims that half of our authors will be dead by the time they have enough paper and interest to print copies of books. Derleth makes a reference to Whitehead's uncanny tales and the troubles associated with being able to print it. Now Mabbott, upon receiving the letter, responds to August Derleth at Arkham House Publishing in an interesting way. Up until this letter, Mabbott sent personal correspondence using common stationery. However, this changes with the letter that Mabbott sends in response. Using the Edgar Allan Poe Society letterhead, Mabbott responds back to Derleth as an authority on Poe. In his letter to Derleth, Mabbott defies common convention that works printed in pulp magazines are ephemeral and not important. Mabbott makes a distinction that although Lovecraft's work was predominantly printed in pulp magazines, Lovecraft is an author of genius. The letter reads as follows. Dear Mr. Derleth, yes, I suspected Dallas was dead. I never met him, but believe he was an eccentric gentleman who once visited a coin dealer of my acquaintance here and made a great impression. He was not unpleasantly eccentric, I judged, and I was very sorry I missed him. It is too bad there is difficulty about paper for a book like Lovecraft. His work is literature with a capital L, in my opinion, and publication thereof is to my mind part of the record of American culture. I have written this deliberately because sometimes officials in charge of such matters as releases of paper may be interested in a professorial opinion. The fact that Lovecraft printed his work so largely in pulp magazines must lead a person not acquainted with its scholarly and artistic merits to underestimate it. But there is no real intellectual basis for a judgment based on where a man prints his stuff. It may be excusably misleading, but it is not truly valid. Use this as you like. For the record, I add that it is certainly unsolicited. I do not set myself up as a great critic, but have been recognized as a respectable one by the late Professor Saintsbury, whom I knew well. And I was a pupil of some rather distinguished men, such as W.P. Trent and Brander Matthews, and at a distance of the gentleman whose work I have spent so many years studying, Mr. Poe. Yours sincerely, Thomas Olive Mabbott. I may add that all the books from your press seem to me chosen for good style and high imaginative qualities. I wish I could say so for the larger commercial presses in general. So Mabbott uses his professorial status to make a passionate plea for the furthering of Derleth's work in this letter. Notice how Mabbott capitalizes the word literature and underscores this sentiment by adding with a capital L. Within the letter, we see how Mabbott both identifies as a reader and fan of pulp magazines, as well as an academic holding prestigious positions. He uses his status as a professor with some distinctions to not only assist Derleth, but also to question the conventions of what is considered real literature. So now we must ask ourselves, so what? This letter strongly demonstrates how a Poe editor worked in conjunction with a Lovecraft editor to continue the legacy of weird fiction. Mabbott uses his position as a scholar to assist Derleth's editorial endeavors. Yet, Mabbott occupied both positions of a fan and a scholar to assist in ensuring that Derleth could publish weird fiction. Both letter writers were passionate about the study and proliferation of weird tales, and they worked in conjunction to ensure that this rich tradition was continued into the 20th century. Also, they conspired together to bridge lowbrow and highbrow culture in a very similar way that both Poe and Lovecraft did in their writing. Thank you so much for listening.